Okay, good evening everyone. It's a little bit of a challenge being the last speaker, given that you're pretty much way behind schedule. So let me try and do my best and try to wrap it up so that we can go to the end of the conference pretty much quickly. So I'm going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the social aspect. I mean, a lot of speakers who spoke earlier today spoke about SMAC, right? They spoke about social, mobile, analytics, and cloud. So what I thought was I'm just going to do a little bit of a deep dive into the social aspect. I've been spending a lot of time in Coimbatore, though I'm based out of Bangalore. I've been spending a lot of time in Coimbatore, speaking with small and medium businesses, trying to understand what they are doing in the social space, and it's pretty much unfortunate that we're not doing a lot when it comes to using social media channels to reach out to customers and so on. So I'm going to speak very quickly about social media for the B2B context, right? Many of the businesses here are B2B, not necessarily B2C, so I want to focus on the B2B segment. You could be a manufacturer, could be a textile company, you could be exporting anything. So how does social media matter to a B2B company, and what is it that you should be doing, right? Why does it matter to businesses in Coimbatore is what I want to speak about. So let me, just so that we are on the same page, what is it that I mean when I say social media? Social media is twofold actually. It could be external focused for reaching and working with your partners and customers, in which case, you have channels like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and the rest of it. It could also mean collaborating internally. Maybe you're a manufacturing company with 3 different plants. Maybe you're a textiles company with, different divisions. How can employees collaborate with each other? So social media can be applied in both the cases. It could be completely external focused or internal focused. So having said that, so that's what it is, right? So when I say it could be external, it could mean how better can you connect with customers and partners. When I say internal, how can you get your employees to collaborate with each other? It could be applied in both the contexts. Now the question is, in Coimbatore, it's mostly about machine tools, castings, power loom, forging, textiles, wet grinding mills, companies like Roots, and so on and so forth. How does social media matter to these firms? Traditionally, social media matters to Flipkart and ClearTrip. You understand, if it's a B2C play, it's clear to see that, relationship. Because that, I need a Facebook page, I need a Twitter channel. Why should it matter to a wet grinding company? Or why should it matter to a power looms company? It's important because of 2 major reasons. Number 1 is that current investments that companies in Coimbatore are making in ERP, CRM is not going to give long-term competitive advantage. Every other company in the world, every other company in China has ERP and CRM in place, right? So ERP and CRM is bare bones. You anyway need ERP and CRM to sustain as a business today. The second thing is that the customer, which is the typical B2B buyer, right, of any of the things that I spoke about, the B2B buyer profile is changing. The guys who are buying stuff from Coimbatore are spending more and more time on social media to find out, which is the best company to be my supplier, right? I could be buying, something in the manufacturing segment, but I don't simply buy based on what I read in your website. I don't simply believe the emails that you send to me or your brochures, electronic brochures that you send to me. The first thing I do as a buyer, if I was sitting in Germany, would be that I would go to LinkedIn. I would go to Facebook and check if you have a Facebook page. It varies by industry, but broadly speaking, the buyer profile is changing. And then the important thing for us to understand is the buyers are using social media at every stage of the purchasing process, irrespective of what they're buying. They could be, it could be a big hotel chain in the US wanting to, find a supplier for premier linens, right? They want high quality linen from somewhere in the world. They could be looking at Coimbatore, they could be looking at Indonesia, they could be looking at China. Now, if it was a repeat customer, it's an easier thing, always. But if it was a new customer, how do I judge a company in Coimbatore versus a company in China, right? What is your social presence? One of the first things that happens, because they start their search in many of these social media channels. It's very invisible, unfortunately, on your projected screen, but let me help you here. So what this slide essentially is talking about is that, at different parts of your buying process, right? So when someone is identifying or defining the need, or identifying a potential supplier, or finalizing a deal with the supplier, irrespective of the stage, increasingly people are turning to social media. So this is a report you can find on the internet. It is called the Buyer Sphere report, which you can find on Google. You can Google for this and download this report. But essentially my point was that throughout the purchasing process in a typical B2B transaction today, people are heavily leaning to social media. So how are companies responding? Not so much in India. India is not necessarily leading in the B2B social media space. That's definitely an opportunity for companies in Coimbatore. But you know, US and Europe are waking up. Many B2B companies in US and Europe are turning to social media in a big way. So this particular slide, as you can see, 90% of B2B companies have used Facebook, you know, specifically for engaging with customers. 53% have used Twitter, 47% have used LinkedIn, and so on. So, I mean, the numbers are not important. The fundamental point that I'm trying to get across is to acknowledge that direct marketing and your website and even having a local marketing person in Europe and US is not sufficient today if you want to expand your market and if you want to reach out to new customers. Is India doing this? Is Indian enterprise doing this in a big way? No, probably not. SMB cluster in Faridabad has partnered with Facebook, as I understand, to see how they can use social media for that industry cluster. I just wish, some of the industry clusters here take the same initiative and understand how best to use social media to start marketing their stuff as well. So it's not about selling your product. It's more than selling your product. It's also about engaging with your customer, right? It's not. So the tricky part is this. What many surveys have told is that company propaganda no longer works. I mean, you could say what you are on your website and you could say what you are on your Twitter channel and Facebook. But what really matters is what are customers telling about you on these open channels, right? When people go to LinkedIn and look at a Powerlooms company's page, I'd really like to see what other people who purchase something from you have told about you. So that's the sort of thing. So social in B2B is becoming increasingly important, and unfortunately Coimbatore is lagging behind. And I think it's something that industries need to look into pretty seriously. So let me quickly walk you through 3 different scenarios where social has made a reasonably big impact. There's this company called Etratech. They're into electronics manufacturing. One of their biggest selling points is the manufacturing plant itself, the unique manufacturing process that they have in their plants. So one of the things they did on the social media side is to create these viral YouTube videos of what the process actually looks like and why is it that they're different from their competitors. Now this, Etratech claims, has compressed their sales cycles from 8 to 6 months to about 8 to 6 weeks, right? I'm just going to continue. I'm keeping in mind we're like pretty much, lagging in time. So let me just continue while the power comes back. So that's a huge thing. If you're a manufacturing firm and you're able to, compress your sales cycle from months to a few weeks, that's a huge leap. One of the things we need to be wary of is that I've seen that many companies in Coimbatore have a Twitter page, have a Facebook page. Now that's not the point. I'm sure it's not necessarily having a serious impact on your business unless you really have a strategy around it. Let's come to that in a minute. So that's Etratech. Caterpillar, manufacturing, very unlikely to be driving sales in social media. Why would Caterpillar look at social media? Caterpillar is in a very B2B business, heavyweight machinery. What are they doing? They found that a lot of the current generation of customers, that's a key thing. Who are your buyers? The buyer demography in US and Europe is changing. Your buyers are getting younger, they're using more and more of social media to buy stuff. So that's the case with Caterpillar as well. Buyers of Caterpillar equipment are getting younger. They are using social media to find them and to find the right sort of supplier for themselves. So that in turn has improved a lot, and this sort of fits in very well to what Raj from Microsoft had to tell in the morning. He spoke about ERP and he spoke about collaboration as a wrapper around ERP, right? So I think every company that has gone through an ERP solution has to start thinking seriously about this, ERP or CRM for that matter. What is the next step for industries which have gone through ERP and CRM in the next 5 years? I think collaboration and social media is one key component that you need to be thinking about. How do you reach out to your customers more proactively? How do you generate demand more proactively, and so on? So Caterpillar is a fantastic example, and these channels don't exist independently today. Many of these channels actually integrate back into your CRM investments, like Salesforce or whatever else you use for CRM. Third one is Teva Pharmaceuticals. Teva Pharmaceuticals classic pharmaceutical company has used social media in the supply chain for optimizing the supply chain. They reduced their manufacturing cycle time 40% in 4 months, improved lead time from upstream suppliers by as much as 60%, and exceeded 95% of service level in terms of fulfilling orders. These are all huge benefits. The tricky thing is, you got to go behind saying, we've done social media, we have a Facebook page, we've done social media, we have a Twitter page. You need to be doing more than that. What is it that you need to be doing? So, and irrespective of whether you want to generate demand, or you're looking at shortening your sales cycle, or perhaps you're looking at improving your customer support. I've seen some leading companies in Coimbatore which has just 3 fields in a customer support form, just 3 fields. Put in your name, email ID, and we'll contact you. I mean, things have moved on. We really need to move past that stage and figure out new ways of engaging with customers. How can you give 3 different ways of engaging with your customer? So there are opportunities all over the place. So I think one of the fundamental things which you might want to think about when you go back is not be complacent with ERP and CRM and start thinking about a social strategy. What is your social media strategy to generate demand, engage with customers, improve customer support, shorten your sales cycle? It could be any business challenge that you have today. What does the social strategy actually mean? It means 2 things. It means having a plan which will allow your employees to collaborate, right? It could be a manufacturing plant. How do you make sure that your employees share best practices across manufacturing plants? You could be an automotive company. How do you ensure that your service people really understand problems that customers have? How do you make sure that they're sharing tips and tricks amongst themselves? Otherwise, you could be an automotive company with 400 field technicians who don't share anything with each other. And every time a technician faces a problem, they have to reinvent the wheel. Nobody does an ROI on all of these. These are all classic knowledge management problems which hit you in the long run. So having a strategy to allow employees to collaborate with each other is one major thing. And the other thing is, how do you start collaborating with your partners and suppliers beyond email and beyond direct marketing? One fantastic example, which the CII Coimbatore region did, which Prashant spoke about in the morning when he spoke, was using a social networking tool called Yammer to organize this event. They exchanged no emails. You speak with Ashok Bhaktavachalam and Prashant to figure out how they did that. I saw the Yammer page. It's a tool called Yammer. It's a fantastic tool. 0 email. They've coordinated the entire planning process on that. Now extend that idea to collaboration with your suppliers and partners. It's a phenomenal thing. That's exactly what Tiva did with their pharmaceutical thing. So a few things for you to consider. I'm almost done with the presentation itself. Happy to take questions out of this if you have any. Is to think beyond infrastructure. All the investment that's happening in industries in Coimbatore is in infrastructure and in ERP and CRM, which is a good first step, because you need to get you need to optimize your operations. You need to be running at some degree of predictability, which is a fantastic first step. But I think it's time, if we really want to get competitive as an industry, as a region, it's absolutely the right time for us to jump and say, here's why we are different from rest of the industry conglomerates in India and abroad. Because we have an opportunity, real opportunity to jump the hoop and say, it's the transition that Vijay from the startup center spoke about, right? It's an opportunity to, like we jumped the landline game and went directly to mobile. It's a huge opportunity for us to go into some of these collaboration platforms. And all of these are cloud-based, easy to deploy. You don't have to necessarily install anything inside your network itself. Like the Yammer tool that people have been speaking about, it's on the cloud and you can just start using it like that. So essentially, the point I was trying to make is, let's start thinking about the next steps, right? In terms of what is it that I want to do. And I think that's one of the reasons this got classified into a game changer theme was for us to start thinking about the next steps. Second thing, how do you make it easier for buyers to find you? Very few of the organizations have a world-class website. Reasonably good websites. Many of the IT firms have good websites, but many of the manufacturing companies, many of the companies who are into export don't necessarily have a very good website with search engine, optimization, search engine marketing built into it. That will be the bare bones thing to start with on any digital marketing thing, right? You need to have a fantastic website. You need to have good social channel presence across channels. For example, a Facebook might work for a manufacturing company, might not. You need to put your head to it and figure out what channels will work best for whom, which industry. And the third thing is to move beyond just social presence. It's not about, as I said, it's not about having a presence on Facebook and Twitter, but it's about engaging with your customer. How do you engage with your customer? Do you have people who respond to a question that gets posted on your Facebook page? You know, some prospect comes and says, you know what, I'm interested in linens, and you know, I want to know whatever. Nobody responds to that for 20 days. Now the problem there is that when you don't have people answering that question, the amount of damage that happens to the brand is enormous, because that fellow is going to go and tweet or, you know, post in his Facebook update, and 20 of his other friends are going to know that, you know, you're a company that doesn't respond. So there is a potential for reputation getting damaged on social media. But at the same time, your reputation is anyway going to get damaged if you're not proactively managing it. That's the truth. Now the brands that are succeeding today are brands that proactively manage reputation online by having community managers who proactively monitor the internet. And there is a whole startup ecosystem around this idea of social listening. There are so many free tools which will, you know, if I do a hash company name and I track your company name, we can generate reports on who's speaking of what's called a brand sentiment, right? Consumer brands do that. Like Apple, you can go and say Apple or Nike or one of those brands, you can just go and find out, is the overall brand sentiment positive or negative at this point? Out of those millions and millions of posts that's happening on the internet. It's the analytics piece of it. People are speaking about your industry. People are speaking about your products on the internet. So it's important for you to, you know, accept that there are risks, but it's exactly the security thing, right? It's important as a first step to accept that there are risks and then try to proactively manage that. So that's the third thing. You got to be engaging your buyer throughout the buying cycle with right content, the right sort of white papers, the right sort of, you know, rich content that many buyers are looking for. You know, it could be a YouTube video of the facilities that you have within your manufacturing facility that you send out to a customer. It's a huge differentiator. Simple thing, low tech, simple thing, powerful one. But the sort of platforms we have today are, you know, pretty powerful. And the last thing is to create an environment where employees can collaborate and, you know, employees can share knowledge. That's also a huge thing. We lag behind. Even IT companies, after going through a lot of, you know, most of the IT companies are, I would say, in the third generation of knowledge management, where they've gone through 1 or 2 generations of trying to get knowledge management right, and all of them are going through the social collaboration angle now. And all of them have platforms where employees can share ideas. The iNautics example, for example, that we heard about in the morning, where people can share ideas with each other. If you're a 5,000 big organization, how do you get employees to share ideas? Because what I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years is that the best idea for your next product could come from a graduate who joined your company yesterday. But that guy, given the structure of the company, will never have an opportunity to voice his ideas up. What if you create a platform, a very democratic platform within your company, just accessible to your employees, where the youngest guy can come and give you a brilliant idea? Or maybe he, you know, posts a blog which has a very interesting way of attacking a new market that he found is there in Argentina, for all you know. That's happening. That's happening in all companies. So I'm from Coimbatore, so my wish for Coimbatore is that, you know, organizations start seeing social more strategically and start reaching out and start getting more aggressive in the digital marketing space. We are lagging behind as an industry in the digital marketing space. The B2C companies are getting there, B2B we are not. But we're not very far behind. Because the West is getting there, they're trying to understand B2B social media marketing better. It's not too late. It's, you know, we still have time. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.